Hey, Megan. Hey, Heather.
Hello.
How's it going?
Welcome.
It's
Welcome.
going.
Awesome.
It's
How are
going.
you?
I'm good enough. How about you guys?
I am great. I will get started with your bio for anyone who is watching. Uh-oh, now it just disappeared. I had it on the phone. Having technical difficulties. Here we are. Okay. So, hi everybody. We have Heather McManamy on with us tonight. She has been a professional trainer since December of 2020 and has worked with horses in various capacities for over 30 years. Now she specializes in helping horses and people become more comfortable with healthcare procedures such as hoof handling, vaccinations, oral medications, and more. She also starts and restarts horses under saddle. She predominantly uses positive reinforcement training using food where behavior is shaped using the smallest steps necessary, making learning easy and thorough while managing fear and frustration thresholds. For clients who want to learn, it greatly improves your feel and ability to recognize and build on good moments. Heather, having studied behavioral science for the past several years, finds it fascinating and a necessary part of horses and people training. She is currently working towards a Certified Equine Behavioral Consultant designation with the IAABC, which means International Association of Animal Behavioral Consultants. She has also been a photographer since May of 2001, which is a long time to watch horses and people interact. More than anything, has helped hone her timing and ability to see details in behavior and movement. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you. It's very exciting to be here.
It is. Tell us your horse story. Like, how did you find your love of horses? What was your first experiences?
That's a really good question. I actually don't know how I got into horses or why. I ended up my cousin when I was really little had a horse named Bones that I think I only met once, but somehow he became my horse because she was generous enough to say that. And I, for every birthday and every Christmas and any gift giving holiday, horse was the only thing that was on my list. And my parents didn't have a lot of money. They're not horse people. My family is not a horsey family. So I somehow got this weird genetic anomaly that the rest of my family really didn't get. So finally, when I was 12, and I have a photo of this exact moment, I got a horse for Christmas. And which was fabulous. But my mom, bless her heart, didn't know about horses, didn't know what she was doing. So she bought me a yearling stallion. So that was my first. I had gone to horse camp and I had, read all the books and done a lot of reading and studying, but I had never started a horse before. I'd never had a young horse. I'd never had a stallion before. So why not start that way? And so I did. And that was Shorty. He was an Arab gelding. And he actually is who my photography business is named for, Short Horse Studios. Yeah. Yeah. And that's basically where it all began. And I just kept trying different things. I've done a little bit of everything. I ended up mostly sticking with dressage because it made the most sense to my logical brain, and it was just the easiest path for me to learn how to ride. And I didn't get to take a lot of lessons. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, so I really had to rely on my observation and what I was feeling in my body and watching other people.
So wait, tell us about. Sorry, Megan, I beat you to it. Tell us more about Shorty and like what you did with this yearling colt and like that whole story I'm so curious about, I realize that's what you named your studio after, but like, what did a young girl do with a yearling colt? And like, did you have help? Tell us all the things.
Oh, I I'm not going to say that I didn't have help, but I didn't have a trainer. I didn't have an instructor. I boarded him in the first place was a boarding stable where he had he had come from Missouri, I think, and it was kind of a sketchy situation. Um, I don't know how my mom found him. I don't know why she was the horse that he picked up or that she picked up. But we stayed at that boarding barn for golly, maybe a year or so, and then moved to a really fancy barn, which was hard for me because I'm not a fancy person. He was not a fancy horse. Um, but I just did I took him for walks. I did, little things in the arena. Started teaching him how to tie, all this stuff. He knew how to wear a halter, but he didn't really know much else. So I had to sort of bumble through teaching him all the things that horses need to know in order to get along in a human world. He was finally gelded. Maybe a couple months after I got him. And that in itself was its own thing because it can be, excuse me, I think this was so many years ago. Oh my gosh. I think he got infected. And so we had to take care of that. And the stable at the time didn't really do turnout. So he didn't get to move and be a yearling horse. So there was some conflict as we kind of figured out how to go along with each other. And then I ended up moving to, it was an old neighbor's house in McManamy, and it was a private facility, and they were so kind. They really helped me handle him and start him under saddle. And I did most of the work, but they would lead him and stuff like that. And from then on, it was mostly me just doing whatever seemed like the right thing to do in the moment, and trying different things. And that poor horse was so kind and so easy. All these years later, after seeing so many other horses, I have such a huge appreciation for just how kind and easy he was, and the kinds of things that he allowed me to do and that he would do with me. One of my favorite stories is I was riding down there. I think he was about 4. So he'd only been under saddle for maybe a year or so. And I was riding down the highway, Highway Y in McManamy along the river. Yeah, not really bright, but, and by myself, and I was 14, and a horse trailer went by, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. A guy with an empty horse trailer. And so about a minute later, he comes by in the other direction. And I was like, oh, he must be lost or forgot something or whatever. And then he comes by me one more time and pulls out in front of me and stops and gets out of the truck. And, I'm 14 and I'm on a young horse, and we're in kind of the middle of nowhere. There weren't any people really around. And he comes back and he's like, hey, you got a nice horse there. And I was like, oh, cool, thanks. And he starts to walk around the backside of my horse. And this horse pinned his ears and snaked his neck out and followed him all the way around and wouldn't let him get behind him. And the guy got in his truck and drove off. But that was the kind of horse that Shorty was. Like, he was going to take care of me for all of the dumb things that I did. He was going to make sure that I was still going to live through that experience.
That is awesome. That's a scary story, but
Yeah.
not unheard of, unfortunately. So what kind of horse was Shorty?
He was an Arab. He was supposed to have really fancy breeding, but because the sales situation was a little bit sketchy, I don't actually know what his breeding was. Turns out it didn't really matter. He was perfect for me growing up. And so we ended up growing up together.
it's a great breed. They're so versatile, and I know so many of my friends when I was a kid had either Arabians or Arabian crosses, and very similar stories as far as we got them young. Half the time they were stud colts, um, yearling stud colts or something, and like us as kids without trainers, just had to learn and teach the horse, and so I love that. It's a very similar story to, I don't know about Megan, but to my upbringing for sure.
Yeah, it's similar. And how long did you have Shorty for?
Not long enough, unfortunately. Let's see. I moved to a barn in Wanakee that was, again, semi-private, and was sort of kind of working with a trainer here and there, and decided that when he was 13, I was starting to get into jumping, and I wanted a horse that was a little bit bigger and could jump bigger fences. Although Shorty could do a 3-6 course, and he was a 14 2-hand little guy, but he had plenty of jump. But as a what was I, 21-year-old, I thought I knew what I needed, and so I ended up finding somebody that wanted a horse like him, and they had a larger thoroughbred horse. So we ended up trading. And honestly, it's like the biggest regret of my life. I really wish I hadn't done it. The horse I ended up with, Dharma, was a great horse, but he wasn't Shorty, and it ended up not being the best situation for him. So yeah, word to the wise, don't ever sell your first horse. Which somebody had told me, and I didn't believe them. And, I learned that the hard way.
I remember Dharma.
Yeah, you met Dharma. That's right. Yeah, he was a cool horse. He was a completely different horse, completely different experience. I went from a horse that really didn't have much in the way of anxiety to a horse that had all of the anxiety that the previous horse didn't have. And that was also a learning experience. Yeah.
And so what did you do after high school? Like, did you become a professional trainer? Where did you go?
So I confess I actually didn't go to high school. Well, I went to a little bit of high school, and then I went to homeschooling. And so I started studying a little bit more about training and horses. I never really put that down, and kept trying to find more information and more ways to work with horses and more things to do. And then I ended up actually working in a photo studio in May of 2001. It was a mall studio. It was like little kids in all day in and out. And that's where I started picking up photography. But as I was working there, I happened to read an ad in the paper for a place that wanted an assistant trainer. So I applied for and got that job. And so I was an assistant trainer. I wasn't there terribly long, but I met some great people, including a friend that I've just reconnected with in the last couple of years, who worked there. And so now we have like all the old war stories of starting young horses and all the things that you wish you knew then that you definitely know now and learned the hard way. So I did that for a while, and I've done some, and that's actually funny enough, that's when my independent professional photography career started as well. Because I was riding horses on the side and doing a little bit here and there, but I ended up going to a local horse show, a combined training show, a schooling show, and a friend handed me a camera because there wasn't a photographer. The photographer that had been at that show, had done that show as a series, had moved out of state. So they didn't have one. So she handed me her camera, and they liked what I did enough to invite me back to be the photographer for the next year. So yeah, so I ended up kind of developing both of these careers sort of slowly at the same time. The photography took off a little bit more quickly because that's, in a lot of ways, it's easier. It's a more immediate product. You know, you take a picture, it's easier to see that right away. And developing a horse is obviously a longer process generally. Um, so yeah, so I worked off and on with friends' horses and started doing a lot more photography and focused more on that for at least probably about 10 years. But never wanted to let go of the training, but just didn't make the opportunities, I guess. I may have had them, but just didn't take them or didn't advertise it. I didn't push it. I didn't really have the confidence to do it then. And the photography was going well enough.
Well, that's how we met. I had no idea
Yeah.
that's how it all started. And you are a fabulous photographer. I mean, I wish I had your eye. Like, I want to know what is your secret? Like, because I still remember the first day I met you. And can I tell a little story?
Yeah, have at it. Yeah.
So it was a client of mine wanted to have photos, and she invited you out, and we all said hi, and off you went, and you were off in this weird part of my property, and I was like, what is wrong with that photographer? Like, why would she pick that? And so, you know, the client, I said, why were you guys over there? That's such an ugly area, right? You know, and she goes, oh, I just follow Heather around. She told me da. Oh my God. The photos came back, and to this day, they may be the best photos I've ever seen. I mean, the colors are unreal. The oranges, the yellows. I want to know what's your secret? Like, how do you see that?
Ooh. Good question. I have kind of two answers for that. One is, well, okay, I have three answers for that, which might lead to oversharing. So Stephanie, let me know if I'm if I'm crossing a line. One is that I was also a musician when I was in school, in middle school and a little bit of high school. I was a musician, so I had a good sense of feel that way, like a sort of a kinesthetic feel. Also, I've had synesthesia for my whole life, which is the ability to experience one sense in another. So like numbers and words and letters have colors and sounds and textures, things like that. So, and I thought everybody had this until the last few years, when it became something that the internet was talking about. And I was like, you guys, I've been like this for my whole life, for like 40 some years. But apparently that's not normal, which I should have guessed. So some of it's due to that. So I experience things a little bit differently, I guess, than the average person. And some of it comes down to having a childhood in which powers of observation were very, very important, and being very vigilant of the people around me and what was happening and where I needed to be and where I shouldn't be, and just being very observant of what was happening. And so, and some of that comes down to genetics, like it's just part of who I am. And a good part of it was the environment that I was in. And once I kind of figured out that that was a skill that I had, I've worked really, really hard to develop it, and to really try to notice things and be aware of not just something that I'm focusing on, but what else is around it. And that's kind of where the photography part comes in. Is you have your subject, you have the thing that you want to emphasize, but there's so much in the environment that supports that. And you almost can't have you almost can't have a photo, and this actually relates to training as well. You almost can't have a photo that doesn't have an environment. And I think, just sort of as an aside, the black background or the black background photos that have become really really popular over the last few years, I think some of the reason that they're popular is because of the lack of environment, and so it's something we don't normally see, and so that way it becomes more a little bit more novel. But yeah, so really it comes down to being really observant of the environment and of what's happening. And I have I have a hard time shooting things that don't move. So like sunsets or flowers or things like that. Those are harder for me. I'm a sight hound. I like to shoot things that move. And so that's where timing comes in, and knowing feeling timing in my own body and feeling it, and knowing, being able to predict what is going to happen out in front of me. So yeah, I guess I would say that those two things are probably the most important things that I both had innately and also really worked hard to develop. And I did actually have a mentor for a long time that I photographed with that just helped me refine those skills as well.
Well, I thank God you have those skills. And also it seems those are the skills you need to also have as a horse trainer. I think that's so important, but I want to stick with the photography business a little bit longer. What were the hard things about owning a photography business?
Yeah, so in the beginning, the hardest thing was that I was starting at the tail end of film and the beginning of digital. So that transition itself was actually really exciting for me. The first 2 years I shot film. So I was shooting horse shows on, 36 rolls of film. And lucky for me, I worked in, not only was it a photo studio, but it was a photo lab as well. So, and I got a discount. So I made money basically, or broke even, only because I was able to get that discount and to get my photos developed pretty inexpensively. But it was a little harder to learn. Like, the timing is harder to learn if you can't see it right away. So I was super, super, super excited when I got my first digital camera in 2004. And the first event that I shot was a gigantic carriage driving event in Columbus, Wisconsin. And it was definitely trial by fire for sure. But I was able to see what I was getting and make some adjustments. And so that was one of the first challenges, was just being more efficient with what I was shooting, because even with digital, with film, you have a finite amount of frames that you can shoot, and it's expensive and it takes up physical space. But with digital, it still takes up space, and it's still, like, that space is still expensive. Hard drives are not free. And it takes a lot of time. So the more, like, mistakes that you shoot, the more expensive it ends up being in time. So learning to be really efficient and to go, I know that I'm not going to use that shot. I'm not going to take it. Which sometimes I'm good at, and sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm like, I'm just going to shoot it just because maybe I'll use it, or something will come of it. And I have gotten lucky that way sometimes. So it is nice to have some stuff that maybe isn't A quality, but I have gone back and looked at images later on, even years later, and gone, oh, actually, I can use that. One of the other really big challenges, and one of the reasons that I ended up sort of getting burnt out on it, was photographing horse shows is awesome for developing your eye and developing your timing, and being really efficient and learning how to talk to people and work with people. But because digital happened, everybody got a digital camera, everybody. And so you would have, 4 or 5 people on the rail next to you, and they were shooting for fun. They weren't shooting to make a living. They weren't eating from what they were doing. And I lost so much money, and a couple things happened. One, I got really upset because like, you guys are taking my money. But at the same time, you start to learn that if your work is good enough, somebody's going to pay for it. And if they don't, then maybe you're in the wrong place and you need to find a different model. And so that's what I ended up doing eventually, was finding a different model that wasn't so event heavy, and I didn't have to rely so much on those kinds of things. And that's when the portrait side of the business really started to take off. And I love that so much more. It's so much more fulfilling and interesting, and I have more control over what I'm doing generally. Not always, but generally. Full control is not ideal. Some chaos is ideal. But yeah, those were the 2 biggest challenges. And along with that, with the event photography, having people just take my images and not pay for them, and feel like, it sounds terrible to say, but feel like they had a right to my work because it was a picture of them. And so I have lost events, I guess, because I've had that happen, and just wasn't able to tolerate it. And it just wasn't, it wasn't good for business, and it wasn't good for me, like personally, mentally. So yeah, because it can really take a toll on your self-worth, honestly, as a creative person, to just have somebody, it feels like disrespect to have somebody just take your images and not credit you or not pay for them.
I remember that time, and I will say I was one of the guilty ones that I did go out and buy a digital setup for myself. So as a side note, like, and some of our regular viewers know this, I had a breeding business, and I had a conversation with my accountant during tax time, and he was like, looking at my expenses, and he's like, I think you need to consider, if you're needing to, have digital photos of all these purses and stuff, he's like, you might want to consider investing. He's like, and I did, but I also, so I was one of the guilty ones, and that was a business decision my accountant kind of pushed me to. But I also remember like that, and this was, I feel like this was the infancy period of social media, at least as far as Facebook coming into its own. And I remember people were just grabbing photos and stealing them. And I remember like trying to help, I guess, more or less, being like, hey, every time somebody would share, I'd be like, do you have permission to share that? Did you steal that? Like, hey, there's a watermark all over that. That's theft. Like trying, because like you were educating, because we were all, not studying copyright law, you there was that whole ignorance level. And I remember like learning from you and trying to help, because I was like, well, yeah, that's not right. And, it was all over social media. People were just, stealing photos from photographers, and it didn't matter if it had like a watermark over them, they were posting them. And, like, I felt like, I'd comment and be like, that's actually theft. Like, you're going to, and Facebook started getting in on that, and thankfully, but I do remember there was quite the level of ignorance for a long time where people were like, you said, well, it's a picture of me. Why can't I use it? I'm not printing it out. And it's like, that was kind of back at the day where, we were kind of going from printed photos to now, like, who prints their photos now? It's pretty rare, right? Like everybody just wants digital, right? Like there was that whole time period, as you kind of mentioned, where things really shifted. And so people were thinking, well, it doesn't matter if I steal the digital copy as long as I don't print it out. And it's like, there was that whole learning curve. Megan, what's up, girl?
I find that so bizarre because I was like, I took a few photos and everybody always complains I take the worst photo of them and I post it on Facebook. But I had knew that before. I mean, I had a sales business and I wanted to show them in the best light. So I always call Heather. I'm like, no, Heather's taking the photo. Like, I'm not. And I am happy to pay Heather for the photo. So I have the exact opposite. I don't care that I own the horse. I don't care that it's me. I'm like, Heather, you're taking the photo. Because like I said, her eyes better. So I am like the opposite end of the pendulum. And again, it's a business. Like, I want to put my best foot forward. So I don't understand anyone as a professional trainer. Why wouldn't you hire a professional photographer? So that's where I come from. I'm opposite. Now, I am guilty of sometimes forgetting on these crazy posts to credit the photographer. So any photographer I have forgotten, I apologize, but I'm so grateful now they put it in the corner. Right? I think that's
Yeah.
important for you to do. So yeah, that's my take on it. Tell us about the photographies or the portrait side. And also, I like your range of portraits. Like, I really like the creative, artsy, and can I say off the wall? Because I haven't seen it before. It really brings out emotion. I mean, all photos do, but I'm like, I see it. There's one of you, and then I look at a different angle and I see something different, and then I look at a different angle. Tell us about the variations in the portraits.
Yeah. So it's like trying to say all the letters of the alphabet at the same time. Um, I guess related to what Stephanie was just saying, and what you were just saying, Megan, going through that process of not feeling very valued and not feeling like what I was doing was getting enough attention. I guess it was starting to not sustain itself. And it was, being in that environment was starting to be just personally really difficult. So I kind of had a choice. I could quit, or I could get better or do something different. And it really, going through that whole process, really, I grew a lot as a person. I ended up having to really look at myself and take stock of my reactions and my emotions about that whole thing, and grow up a little bit, so through that process of sort of reevaluating what I was doing, what I was getting out of it, and how I was feeling about it, I started to feel different things, I guess is the best way that I can describe it. And because digital had been around long enough, composite imagery had started to happen. And composite imagery has been around since, oh my gosh, I mean, Dali, the painter, those are relatively composite. There's a lot of weird, surreal stuff out there, from all media. But digital photography was becoming a medium in which it was much easier to do composite imagery. And I got really interested in the surrealism of it. And that's kind of where my brain lives anyway, for the most part. So in trying to do more impactful portraiture, using, the traditional, the traditional techniques of lighting and posing and things like that, I then had this sort of new element that I could combine different images together to make a whole other image. And that has really become the thing that I love doing the most. I call them signature images because they are something that have me in them. I mean, a lot of them actually do have me in them because I'm the most available model in any moment. So, but they have they have my vision and my my particular flavor, I guess, in them. And I had a conversation with a friend a few weeks ago, and she kind of called them soul portraits. They're, you know, they're not just portraits of a subject. There's more to it than that. Funny now that I have the opportunity to talk about it, I don't have good words for it. But yeah, that became the thing that I really, really wanted to do and really wanted to dive into. And I did for a long time. And haven't done as much lately. It's for various reasons. It's been more sort of bread and butter work, and trying to sort of stay, excuse me, stay just sort of stay afloat and just stay sort of relevant. And I did end up sort of taking a break in late 2016. I kind of decided that I was really burnt out. I really needed a break. And I had gone to, in early 2016, I had gone to Haiti with my veterinarian. And I got to, which is one of the best experiences of my life. I got to go follow her for 10 days and photograph what she does down there. Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. And I still think about that 10 days, and it still changes how I see life. It has had such a personal impact on me. And there are some of my favorite images that I've ever done there, and some of them don't even have horses in them, which is saying a lot. But I got to sort of play travel photographer for a week and a half. And I felt like that was sort of the most that I could give. That was the most that I had in me. And kind of got burnt out, just at a place in my life where I kind of got burnt out as well. So I ended up taking a break. And that break has been a lot longer than I expected. And now trying to come back to it, it's really hard because there are so many photographers that are really good, and it's not easy to walk away and then try to come back and take the same place that you had when you walked away. So I think even though it's more work and it's harder to do and it's harder to set up, the signature portraits are going to be where I'm going to start focusing, I think, a little bit more, because they are just a lot more fulfilling. Getting people to do them is a little harder. It's a lot more vulnerable process for people. It's a lot more involved for them. It's much more personal. There's a lot of crying sometimes because there's a lot of emotion in it. So it's harder to get the right kind of people that really want to put in the work and and be part of the team, because it really is, that kind of thing really is a team effort. And a lot of it's a lot of forethought and planning and a lot of vulnerability. And that's really, I think that can be really difficult for people. Being photographed in general is difficult for people. I haven't myself because I know how awkward and weird it is, and how just difficult it is to be in front of the camera. And because we all have our things we don't really like about our body, or there are always things, there is something. So regular portraiture is difficult enough, but these kinds of things are much more involved and personal. So I'm looking for some more weirdos that want to do it.
I'm one of those weirdos, because actually you had put an ad out and I didn't follow through for various excuses. We don't need to list them off, but I'm going to be telling Avi that's what I want for the holidays.
Oh, perfect. Okay. We'll
Yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah. did you have like a business plan coming into your photography business, or did you just point and shoot? No pun intended.
Both actually. So I didn't, I can't say that I started out trying to make it as a business. It was like, ooh, it's a fun thing that I can do and people like it. And like, it feels good to do it. And like both getting a good image feels good. And like, it feels good to be out there and in out with my friends and people, people that I know, or watching beautiful horses and good riders, things like that. So I didn't really start out as a business with a business intent. And then through the mentor that I had met from a workshop, actually the first photography workshop I ever took, I I ended up working for him as well, and through him went to a number of photography business workshops, which at that time were huge because digital was such a big it. The old school photographers started developing developing workshops for business for photographers, because that was a great new market for them. So I did eventually do a business plan. I'm not really good at following plans. Great at making plans. I can make all the plans in the universe, but following them is really difficult, especially when it comes to things that I can't really control. Like, I don't have any really big control over the market, like the economy, and photography is definitely a luxury thing. So the economy, I think, has a lot to do with it. And I always found marketing really difficult, and following a marketing plan. Yeah. And I'm not by any means an extroverted person. So uh, so talking about myself is really weird and really hard. And trying to be honest and authentic without being uh, egotistical about it, but also without diminishing myself. And that's actually more of the challenge, to stand up and say, yes, I can do this thing. And other people say it's good, so it must be pretty good. And I like it. There's a lot of what I do that I really like. So I've had many different plans over the years. And I generally sit down in January and take a look at what's happened and what I'd like to happen. But from like a day-to-day standpoint, I don't know. I'm not as structured as I could be.
Megan's like, that's okay. I understand that. It's so interesting. So I don't want to, monopolize, your time tonight talking forever about the photography, but, just so people know, I have flashed your website on the screen a few times. Unfortunately, one of the weird things of how we do this through YouTube is the live chat will disappear. It doesn't get saved to YouTube. So that's why you'll see me like right now. I'm throwing, this is Heather's photography website. Do you have a different site for your horse training side of the world?
I do.
Okay, you should put that on.
It is. Can I put it where can I put it somewhere? Or should I just
you can put it in our private chat here, and then I can copy it into the live stream. So you want to tell us what it is?
Yeah, so
the
business, the training business is Equus Integratus. And I can't have a business that doesn't have a weird or really so I had to pick that. And that name has a long story that I have actually yet to find, which sounds really weird. Like, why would you name a business something that you don't like have a really good handle on? But it was an intuitive thing that came together. Integratus is a Latin word for having been made whole, or basically that refreshed, remade whole. And so that's kind of, it was what I needed in my life at the time. And it's also what I really hope to do for horses and horse people as well. Hang on, I can't type and talk at the same time.
We have a question actually from the audience. So, and I'm not entirely sure if Linda's asking about the photography side or the horse business side. So take this whichever direction you'd like. How do you decide who you want to work with?
Ooh, that is a good question. So some of it depends on who shows up. Like I'll kind of give anybody a chance, especially for photography, because it's a pretty, I don't want to say it's a superficial interaction, because that's not true. But it's not a long-term interaction for the most part. So, and I do like meeting people and talking to people one-on-one, and certainly learning about their horses. I love it when people talk to me about their horses. But generally it's generally people that I resonate with, which, like, that's who everybody works with, is people that they like. But usually there are people that are a little bit quieter, or have maybe some body image issues, or, because I have been told that I'm easy to talk to, and that I make people feel comfortable. And so I think those are the people that come to me, and I find them fun to work with when they start to kind of come out a little bit. So photography people, yeah, kind of anybody. It can be anybody. As far as the training business goes, that's been a learning experience. I'll be really honest about that. When I first started, I think, like a lot of people, would entertain the thought of taking anybody on, because you want to have those horses under your belt, and you want to have all that experience and do all those things. But I am definitely not a pro for everyone. Because what I do is just it's niche within a niche, and it's so different than most of what's out in the equine industry. So now I'm more focusing on the people that my favorite people are the ones that want to learn feel. And it's sort of hard to define what that is. And a lot of people say, well, you can't teach feel. You either have it or you don't. And I totally disagree with that, because I have taught people feel. But it has to be someone who wants to do it, who is willing to make mistakes and to suck at it. Because it doesn't matter what you're doing with horses. It's hard. Everything that we do is hard. And I was thinking about this actually before, like in the last couple of days. Breeding horses is hard. Doing it well and being a responsible breeder, and just financially it's hard. And training horses is obviously really hard, and finding the right horses to train is really hard. Everything about it is really hard. And then you get the complication of the horse and the person combination. And they're not always immediately the right combination. And that's hard. Excuse me. So now, yeah, I try to be really upfront about how it works, the kinds of things that I do, the time that it's going to take, because I do have to have people that are willing to put in the time, both their own time in doing their own training, because most of what I do is coaching people through their own training. I can, and I have taken horses training myself, and that horse is awesome for me, and they want to work for me, but they don't. The owner didn't learn the skills, doesn't have the same language that I've taught this horse, and the horse just doesn't. I mean, it sounds really egotistical, but the horse just doesn't want to work for them. And because I work with food, like that adds another element to it. And I've had situations where I've handed the horse off to the owner. The owner has the food. The horse knows the owner has the food. The horse knows I don't have the food, and they still won't leave me, which is like amazing for my ego, but it is not helpful in the long run. So yeah, I want to find people that want to learn it themselves and really want to put the work in themselves, because that's the most rewarding for me.
I love that. I love that. And let's take a step back and talk about, can you tell us about your journey in becoming a certified equine behavior consultant, and a little bit about the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants, and why? Why did you pick that?
Yeah, another good question. I had, and Stephanie will remember him. I had a horse called Bailey, and he was not an easy horse. He started out not being an easy horse, and I had learned them, which was, and this is going to sound really demeaning, and I don't know, it might come off as a little bit condescending, but it's to be, because I've been in this position. I started out with him being very traditional in how I was training things, and always tried to be really soft, but I didn't have what I needed in order to be as soft as I needed to be with him. And so I made all the mistakes of using too much pressure and not waiting for the horse to be ready to do things, and not seeing that what the behaviors were meaning. So what he was doing was just like, oh, he's just being annoying, or he just doesn't want to do it, or it was all his fault, and it was not anything that I was doing, of course. Where I just ran out of options. I ran out of things to be able to do. Excuse me. And I was looking on a bitless bridle page on Facebook. And this is sort of a long, convoluted story. I'll try to make it short. And there was another thing that was mentioned that happened to use positive reinforcement, but that wasn't the focus. And it was basically kind of a wacky type of physical therapy for horses that, in retrospect, I'm super glad that I came to positive reinforcement this way and learned about behavior this way. But in retrospect, was probably not the best introduction, because it takes a lot of skill that I didn't have at the time. So, but anyway, I got involved in this and had to learn about positive reinforcement, because you can't do it with pressure and release. And I can put up a link to it too if people are interested in it. But I ended up getting more and more and more interested in the behavior side of things, because the more I went into why doesn't my horse want to move, the more I learned what behaviors he was showing me and what those behaviors meant and what I needed to do about it. And I really, really just wanted to ride. I just wanted to get into riding and keep training riding horses and doing that. But I couldn't with what I had, with the horse that I had at the time. So I started learning more and more about behavior and neuroscience, and all of this time learning more about myself and my own behaviors, and again having some hard come to Jesus moments with myself, and realizing that if I wanted to get where I wanted to go, I needed to change my own behavior, and I needed to see things differently. And so I ended up being able to attend an online conference called Clicker Expo, and that was in 2020, I think, and it was online because of COVID. So I got kind of lucky that I got to go to this thing that's normally a live in-person thing, and learned a lot more about behavior and the science of behavior change and behavioral analysis, and learned about the IAABC. And they are, as it says, an international organization, and they're a certifying body for animal trainers who work with horses and dogs and cats and birds. I don't think that there's a whole lot for other exotic species, but there are other organizations that work with exotic species. But they have an educational side to their organization, which is really great. And they have their own conference, which I have yet to go to, which I'd love to at some point. But they also have a certification process where you can take a very lengthy, very involved test. It's like taking the bar if you're a lawyer. And there are a lot of qualifications that you have to have, and references from veterinarians and from clients and things like that. I have yet to actually do the certification because I want to be over prepared for it. I've had enough people tell me that I should just take it and see what happens, but I'm not a big risk taker that way. And I don't want to fail. I just don't want to fail. So I have yet to take it, but I'm hoping to do so within the next year. But yeah, yeah. But in the meantime, doing my best to learn about, again, the science of behavior and behavioral analysis, because I really do think that we, as horse people, but as people, are all behavior analysis and now analysts. Oh my gosh, behavior analysts, because we're always looking at the behavior of the beings around us and having to decide what that means and what we're going to do about it and how it affects us. And it certainly comes into play with horses. And what's interesting to me is that I think the horse world, and I'm not alone in this, the horse world is pretty far behind other industries when it comes to knowing a bit more about the science of behavior. We have a lot of, this is a whole other conversation, but we have a lot of, a long tradition of using horses as tools, as sport, as transportation, war. So we don't look at their behavior in a way that comes from their perspective, because that wasn't going to serve us in a war. We weren't going to say, well, horse, how do you feel about going to war today? Ain't no horse going to go, yeah, let's do it. So, and we just didn't have, we needed to do what we needed to do. We needed to get done what we needed to. And so it's been an interesting journey, talking to people about what they think behavior means and what has been, I don't want to say proven by science, because that makes it sound like it's cut and dried, and science is a process. It's not an institution. It's not a thing that, like, oh, we wrote a paper on this, and so now this is how it goes. Stuff is always changing, and we're always learning new things. But sort of conversely, the traditional folks who there is so much value in their experience. There really is. Like, you have to have that experiential part of things. But what I'm finding is that it's harder to get them to look objectively and to change their minds when there's new information presented. And that's been one of the biggest challenges. And that's why I think I've started to pursue the behavior analyst aspect of things, because I really want to know how to have these conversations with people that don't alienate anybody. I think it doesn't matter what aspect you look at in the horse industry, and particularly right now, and I know we all have seen this, that it's very divisive, it's very combative, it's very tribal, and it's very threatening to have a different opinion, and that doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't serve the horses by any means, and it certainly doesn't. We don't serve each other with that. So I guess my goal here, in becoming certified and in learning more about this, is to use that knowledge to help people understand a different perspective, at least, if not a new perspective, or just be able to take a different perspective and not just stay with the information they already have and keep it that way forever and ever, because I don't think that serves anyone.
So I'm going to quick ask, and I say quick ask, but it's probably going to be a long, involved answer, so I'll apologize in advance. So give us one or more examples of, like, the kind of client that comes to you. I don't mean the human. I mean, what kind of horses are brought to you, like, and you know what I mean? One or more examples of, like, somebody's having a problem, or however. Can you kind of explain? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I generally do get problems. People usually hand me problems, because positive reinforcement and clicker training, again, is so new, and it's so kind of weird, and it can be off-putting to people. I'm the witch in the wild woods, and I don't get people coming to me unless they need some serious voodoo, because they can't, because their farrier won't work on their horse anymore, or the vet won't come out and do vaccinations anymore, because their horses are dangerous, or just won't participate, or like they can't catch their horse. And so I see a lot of, they end up being either really anxious horses that have had really bad experiences in the past, or they're horses that haven't had any experiences. And then, the better farrier comes and the horse just doesn't know what to do. Excuse me. So they do what horses do when they get upset. They try to leave, they maybe get a little bit aggressive, or sometimes they just shut down, and you can't get done what you need to do because the horse just won't move. So it is generally horses that have had some kind of trauma, I guess, and that's not what I set out to do. I set out to have a good time with horses, and do all the fun training stuff. So a lot of what I'm doing is training things, like, as an example, training a horse to pick up their feet, but in a completely different way than they may have learned it before, because how they learned it before has so much negative emotion attached to it, that I have to find a back door or a side door to get through, to get that same behavior, to get a horse to be able to have another person handle their feet. So yeah, it is kind of a long, involved answer, because there are so many different aspects to it, and it just depends on, I guess, what the problem is and how how many things have been tried to fix it. If it's a horse that hasn't had much experience, that's that's often a little more fun, because I can kind of go about it in a traditional like way, that's going to end up looking exactly like every other horse that's been trained in a more conventional way. But as an example, I guess one of the things that I teach horses to do is to target a body part. So they'll put a body part onto something. Generally, for me, it's a hand target. So I'll use like a fist if I want a horse to touch their nose to my hand. Or for legs, I'll use a pool noodle and teach the horse to touch the pool noodle with their foot, because I'm not putting any of my body parts down there until I know that that horse isn't going to do something bigger, or, you know, until I know that I'm not going to get hurt. So that process can take a little bit longer for a horse to kind of figure it out, because you have to teach them first about targeting. And then you have to teach them that it's okay that their legs are being touched. And then you have to teach them that it's okay that they lift their legs. Like, it becomes a much longer, more involved process in the beginning. But once that horse knows what the game is and knows that I'm going to ask for something, I'm going to tell you exactly when it is that you did that thing, and I'm going to give you a reward for it, then it goes way faster. It's way, way, way faster. Starting horses under saddle feels like watching paint dry for the first couple months, and then suddenly they have it. And some of the husbandry, like healthcare behaviors, work the same way. It might take a really long time to get that sort of onboarding process done. But once that horse has that, knows what the game is, 99% of them are super happy to play. And they'll start volunteering things. And then you have the opposite problem, where you have a horse that's like, I know what to do, I'm totally going to do it. And you have to be like, no, you can't do it now. You have to wait till I ask you to do it. So you get what's called discretionary effort. So you'll get more intensity or more duration, or you'll get like a horse that just really intensely wants to do the thing, because they like the food, but also because they love the game, because they love using their brains. And what's so fun about that aspect of it is you can take a horse that's really shut down, or really anxious, or, you know, not normal in one way or another, and go through this process with them and their owner, and then their owner ends up thinking, oh, my horse is so smart. I never knew my horse was so smart. He's so much smarter than all the other horses. And they're all really smart. We just don't ask them questions in this way. We don't ask them questions in a way that they can answer where they look really smart. Does that answer your question at all?
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea is just to get people an idea of, like, you know, what your business entails. And I don't want to say that, like, that's the only thing. So are we missing? Am I not answering the right question? Is there something I'm missing that you want to talk about?
No, I mean, no. Did you have a question, Megan?
Yeah. So my question is, what is positive reinforcement to you? And how is traditional training not the same? We don't have to pick on any specific discipline or anything like that. I just want to know what's different and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So, and again, it involves sort of a longer answer. So you have reinforcement and you have punishment, and they're sort of two ends of the same spectrum. And you have negative reinforcement and positive reinforcement, and we'll just stick with that for right now. So positive reinforcement is adding something to the environment after a behavior to make that behavior more likely to happen in the future. So the positive word just means adding something. It's not a a value judgment. It's not it's not it's not like a positive attitude kind of thing. It's just and it's designated as R plus because in the scientific term, or from the scientific perspective, the R is for reinforcement, and the plus is like the modulator. So we're adding something that's going to reinforce the behavior, so it's more likely to happen in the future. And negative reinforcement is removing something that's going to make a behavior more likely to happen in the future. So I'm going to add food after behavior that I like. And the horse is going to go, I did a thing, I got food for it, I'm going to try that thing again. And negative reinforcement is I'm going to add some pressure, like on a halter or bridle or whatever, and the horse is going to do what I want them to do. So I want them to maybe move away or whatever from that pressure. And when they do that, I'm going to release that pressure. So that's the negative aspect of it. And because the pressure is uncomfortable enough to make the horse perform that behavior, to move away from that pressure, the horse will learn, if I feel this pressure and I move away from it, it goes away. I'm going to move away from that pressure again in the future. So it's not, again, it's not a value judgment. It's not saying that people that use pressure and release is like the more common term for it. It's not saying that that's a bad thing or it's abusive or anything like that. And I use negative reinforcement. I just teach it a little bit differently. So that's the biggest difference. It's much more common in traditional, and in pretty much all of horsemanship, whether you want to call it traditional or Pirelli uses, natural horsemanship uses the same sort of pressure and release idea. And horses learn from it, obviously, because, you know, for millennia, we've mostly used pressure and release. It is in a lot of ways faster. It works even if you're not as refined at it. If you don't have as good a feel for it, it still works. It doesn't take, it should take a lot of feel, but it doesn't have to. And so I think that's another reason why it's more common, is because, again, going back to what we needed to do with horses in the past, this was just a great way to get it done. And that's not to say that over the past millennia that people haven't also used positive reinforcement to get things done. It's just not as common. Does that answer your question? Does that make sense? I kind of lost my train of thought.
And how do you find people take your training? Are they interested? Are they against it? Or is it they just don't know? I mean, because I'm curious, because I watched your videos for the last 5 years and I was like, what is Heather doing? Because I'm a curious person. I didn't look at it as a negative thing. I was like, what's she doing? But I don't have time. Like, I'm just gonna be honest. I'm narrow-minded. I'm focused on my business. And I wanted to, and that's really why I wanted you on. I want to go, what's she doing over there? Like, what's happening? Maybe she's doing something better that I can bring to my program. And I have been wanting to go to one of your clinics, and hopefully we can talk about that too. But like, how are you received? You know, because like when Monty Roberts came out, people like had death threats, you know, and to me, I was like, wow, it seems like a great method, you know, and we all are similar, looking for similar things, but like, talk to us about that.
Yeah. So, how it's received really depends on the individual. I have actually taken a huge step back from social media in general because there are a lot of misconceptions about what positive reinforcement really is. It's because it involves food, people focus on the food, because it looks like you're bribing a horse, or you're spoiling a horse, or you're turning a horse into a cookie monster, and all of those things can absolutely happen. I'm not going to say that positive reinforcement is the answer to everyone's prayers, and you don't have to know anything to do it. It actually takes quite a bit of initial skill and initial thought, because food is super powerful, and horses will work for it, and because of the way that a lot of horse keeping has to be done, because of the rise of like metabolic syndrome and how horses have to eat. A lot of times food is withheld just for the health of the horse. And that's totally understandable. I'm in that situation myself. Actually, I have a pony that's overweight. And so trying to find the balance between like, how can I feed this horse to keep her happy and to keep her going, but not so much that she explodes. and there's pony everywhere. But also not withholding food to the point where it makes the training really difficult to do, because the food becomes the focus and then the horse gets frustrated. So it is not well received by the really old, I don't want to say old time, but the very traditional folks who do come from a more military style background, and also by folks who don't understand that the order of things is really, really, really important. And the structure and how you do things is so important. And it is in pressure and release training as well. But because of the added pressure of food here, and it can be a pressure situation for a horse, the order of things is really important. So the very first thing I teach people is how to teach your horse to behave around the food, so that everybody knows when food is happening, how it happens, where it gets delivered, how it gets delivered, and what the horse needs to do in order to get the food. And I start with the lowest value food that I can find that horse is still gonna eat, because it really is not about the food. The food is just a communication tool. So I start everybody just, can your horse take the food and not eat you? Like, can they, how do they feel about it? Is it a really big deal? And the vast majority of horses are okay with it. Like, I've run across some that actually get really aggressive really fast. And that tends to be more a factor of that horse's environment and management situation. And so it's actually a really good barometer of what is the quality of life of that horse? What is their relationship to food as a general thing? Are they getting enough to eat? And is it, are they satiated, just as a general thing? But in general, I just have a horse stand there and we start kind of throwing food as in a rhythm, just to kind of figure out how fast is that horse eating, and then when can you start to add the click in, which is different. I don't use a clicker because that's way too many things for my hands. So I use a mouth sound. And when can we start to add that marker in? And that's the thing that teaches the horse that they're doing the right thing. And they start to figure it out really quickly. And you'll see it too. You'll have a horse next to you and they'll want to come in and like get in your food pouch and get all over you. And as soon as they move away, you use the marker sound. And that happens, maybe 3 to 20 times. And then you see the horse figure it out. and they'll kind of start to come over to you, and then they'll go back to their neutral position. And then they'll kind of come over and they'll go back to their neutral position. And so then they start to figure out, oh, this is how the game works. I can play this game. I got this. But a lot of people don't start that way. They start asking a horse to do something, and then they give them food. And then they give them like those German horse cookies. Oh my gosh, that is crack for horses. Please, 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 please don't use that. Please don't use it.
Only one horse gets those.
And like, I'm not saying like you can't ever give your horses those, but don't use it for training, because it's way too much.
It's not for training. No, absolutely not.
Just for fun.
Actually, they have actually molded. Like, that's how little I use treats. Sorry. But like, I've had an amazing day with him, and only AJ gets him. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, Mommy, he gives me that look, and I'm a total sucker just like anybody else. And I'm like, here you go. But I don't use a lot of treats. So that's okay.
Yeah. And that's actually probably just as well, because it can get super, super messy. So if you don't set it up in a really structured way to begin with, you're at best, your horse is going to be super confused. And at worst, you're going to get behavior that you definitely don't want. And you're going to be accidentally reinforcing that behavior. So you're going to get more behavior that you don't want if you don't structure it very carefully in the beginning. Because anything that you reinforce is going to happen again. And if you're inconsistent with it, what can happen is the casino effect, where sometimes they get reinforced and sometimes they don't. Like, sometimes you win that jackpot at the casino and sometimes you don't, but you're going to keep playing. You're going to keep going, and you're going to try harder every time. And that's, it seems like a great thing because you're going to get a horse that like really wants to do things, but it actually creates frustration. And it creates a lot of behaviors that you just really don't want. Yeah.
My horse is perfect.
Of course. Of course.
I have to say that once a day. Sorry.
Of course.
He's absolutely perfect. Who do you enjoy working with? Because you had said like your expectations were different when you first started your business. And what did you expect? Because I too, when I started my business, had different expectations, or I was an idealist, and then now I'm more of a realist, and I'm like, oh, so can you kind of share on that?
So like, what is my ideal client? Is that what you're asking?
Or you had said you hadn't expected to deal with all of the problem horses. We'll just say that. It's not really their problem horses, because I actually hate saying that. I would say they're people problem horses, or they have people problems is how I would word it. And I feel like the guide to help people understand horses and their language. That's the way I feel. But no, my question was, you had initially said your expectation was of a different horse. Like, you wanted to work on what was fun. What is fun to you? You know, what was your expectation coming into this?
Okay. I definitely wanted to do more riding stuff, but basically more riding stuff and more advanced, sort of upper level dressage type things. And I found the people that were doing those things were not the ones that were interested in what I was doing, because they already had a way to do it. And if it ain't broke, nobody's going to try to fix it. And that's totally fair. If it's working, that's a parallel that you can make between horse and human behavior. If it's working, you're going to keep doing it. It's reinforcing enough. You're going to keep doing it. So I ended up, having to pivot and still do, I can do whatever I want with my own horses. But I kind of see myself as, so there's an analogy, I don't remember where this came from, but it was a college professor, I think, and he was talking about, he had this jar and he put pebbles in the jar, and he said, is the jar full? And some folks said yes, and some folks said no, and then he put smaller pebbles in, and is the jar full, that kind of thing. So I'm the sand that fills in all the little cracks. I can start a horse. I've started, well, just one. I don't want to like overblow this, but I've started one Mustang from having been unhandled to, she was too young to start under saddle, but being handleable and for the vet and the farrier, things like that, and groundwork and all of that. I can do that. I can take a horse from like no education to a basic riding horse. But that doesn't seem to be what people want from me. And that's okay, because I also enjoy doing the little things like injection training and hoof handling and things like that. But what I'm finding that I like, excuse me, what all of those things have in common are finding the people that want to learn feel. And then we talked about this a little bit before, that want to learn like the really subtle nuances in body language and how you use pressure and how you use your body and how you respond to the horse's signals and their body language. That more than anything that's the person that I want to find, is the one that wants to learn a lot more about nuance. And it just so happens that I do that with positive reinforcement because it requires it. You have to, it can go so sideways if you aren't really structured and if you don't have decent feel. That's not to say that if you don't have feel, you can't do it. I can certainly help you with that. And if you don't have any experience, and 90% of the people that I work with don't initially have experience with it, I can absolutely help you with that and get you started. In fact, I have a clinic this weekend. Yeah, I was super, super stoked. The clinic, the participants are full, so we don't have any more horses coming in, but definitely room for auditors. But I don't think any of these folks have actually done positive reinforcement. So I'm super, super excited to get started from the very beginning and get them started in what I would consider the right way to do it. You know, there's as many ways, there are more ways to do it than there are people doing it. But I've made all the mistakes. And so I can tell people how to do it and how to learn the nuances of things while they're doing it. And that I think is, the overarching sort of connection between all of the husbandry and healthcare stuff and the fun riding stuff. So it isn't, I guess there isn't a particular thing that I would want to do or a particular person that I'd want to work with so much as just someone who wants to learn the nuance of it.
All right. You touched on what was going to be part of my next question, which is, on your website, which I'm actually going to go ahead and toss on the screen again. You actually talk about workshops or, a clinic, we'll say. So can we talk a little bit about that? Can you tell us, like, is this a one-day thing? Is this a half day? Is this a week or 2 days or 5 days? You know what I mean? And then, like, what would a participant hope to get out of it? And then what do you want auditors to get out of it? There's kind of a lot there.
Sure. Yeah, you might have to remind me what the questions are. So my workshops or clinics, you can call them whatever. I call them workshops because they are shorter. They're generally a half day. It's usually like 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I'll do a lecture first, which is like as much behavior analysis stuff as I can get out in an hour or less. I try to keep it down to 45 minutes so we can all take a break and get up and get some water or whatever. But I really, really want to convey the basic sort of foundational information on which these clinics are built. So the basic parts of behavior and a little bit, just very basically how behavior works, because there is a pattern to behavior. And if people take, either the participants or the auditors, if they take nothing else away, I would love for them to know the pattern of behavior and how that works. And I could explain that a little bit now if you'd like, or yeah, okay. Okay, so you asked for it. So behavior happens, the smallest unit of behavior can be described as an acronym ABC. So the A is the antecedent, which is a big word which behaviorists love to use, but it's everything that came before the behavior. So it's that horse's life history, their learning history, the environment that they're in right now, their internal environment, how they're feeling about things right now, everything that happens before the behavior, whatever the behavior is. And then, which all of that history is going to influence what behavior happens. No matter what your cue, and a cue too. Like if you put a leg on a horse, that's a cue to go forward. That leg cue is an antecedent, and going forward is the behavior. And if you have a horse that has had some kind of bad experience, spurs, whatever it is, some kind of bad experience with a leg cue, that behavior might not be what you want it to be. That behavior is going to be whatever that horse thinks is the right thing to do. And so B is the behavior part of that, and C is the consequence. And this is all from the horse's perspective. So the consequence of the behavior is the horse, you put the leg on the horse, say it's a normal horse and everything, the training is fine, the horse goes forward. For the horse, the consequence is the legs come off, that pressure comes off. And that's how you get the behavior. Like I had said before, with the negative reinforcement, you put pressure on, the horse does a thing, you take the pressure off. And that's it in a nutshell. It seems really simple, but if you think about that, there's always a history and there's always a reason that the horse does what they do. And the behavior is the thing that we see in the middle. It's the thing we notice the most. It has the biggest effect on us. And it's something either we like or we don't like. And so that's the most salient thing for us. But in order to change that behavior component, you have to know what happens before and what happens after and what's in it for the horse, basically. So that's sort of the short version of the ABC. ABC contingency is what they call it. And just knowing that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, you can look at every behavior and try to figure out, why did that happen? And how do we get it to either happen again, or how do we change it? And the way to change it is to change the A and C components of things. So that's sort of a sloppy explanation of it. But a really simple one. And if people take nothing else away, I want them to consider that when dealing with either behavior that they want or a problem that they're trying to solve. Because the horse doesn't just do things because they're a jerk. And like people, most people say, yes, I agree with you. Horses don't do things because they're jerks. But when you're in the moment of something that's happening, that particularly something you don't like, or like something that is destructive to the horse or to property or something, people forget that there's a reason that the horse did it. And that from the horse's perspective, that was the right thing to do. So yes, I really just want people to understand horses do things for a reason, and we have options on both sides of that to change what that behavior might be. Question?
So, what would a participant who had a horse be, like, let's say it's their first workshop with you, what would you kind of do with them for like a very first experience in a workshop or kind of situation?
Sure. So I'm going to go through that same process that I sort of talked about before with it's going to look like you're just chucking food in a bucket. But what we're going to do is try to establish a rhythm and teach that horse where within the rhythm they should, they're going to get the food, and what behavior they're doing is going to get the food. And that first behavior it's called stand still, face forward, which is exactly what it sounds like. The horse just stands there in a neutral position, and they just wait for food to happen. And then once they're in that position, and it's fairly reliable, the human is going to click. I'll just use the word click, and hand the horse some food. And then the horse is going to figure out, oh, click means food's coming. And so that's the initial setup. And then I'm going to have that participant learn how to teach a horse how to target. And for this, I always have, actually, I just went to Walmart today and bought like 1,000 fly swatters because they make great targets. Because it's a thing on a stick. And it's a super, super easy thing to do for a horse, because you put out a something in front of their nose and they're going to go, oh, what's that? And they're going to touch it. You click for that and you do it enough times and the horse says, oh, I touched that thing with my nose. I hear the click, I get a cookie. Not a cookie, you get food. And then with those two skills, you can teach a horse to stand still for whatever you want, farrier, vet, saddling, whatever it is, and move. So a target, you can move a little bit and the horse has to go to it. And so you can teach a horse, this is how I teach rein cues. So it ends up being pressure and release, but it is taught with a target. You add a little pressure, you add the cue, a little pressure on the rein, and you present the target and the horse moves towards the target. And then they figure out, ooh, the cue is actually the rein pressure. So those are the two things that I teach in this really beginner clinic. And honestly, and the lessons are only 30 minutes, but you'd be surprised how much thinking is involved. Because there's a lot of moving parts. Even just in the beginning, it's hard for people to find the rhythm of pull food out of your pouch, put it in the bucket, bring your hands back to neutral. There's all kinds of stuff that people want to do. They want to keep their hands in the food pouch, and that is an absolute invitation for the horse to follow their hands. So they have to learn the mechanics of feeding a horse, which sounds really simple, but in that situation, it's actually not. It has to be very clean and very mechanical. And then they have to learn the timing of it. And that is also a separate piece that is not always easy to learn, especially if you have a horse that is either a little weirded out by the situation to begin with and doesn't necessarily want to eat, or doesn't care about the people in the audience or anything, just wants to get the food and is so focused on the food. So in the beginning, that the timing and the mechanics are pretty much the only thing we work on. And that half hour goes by really fast. And horses' brains get full. You would think, oh, the horse is just eating. It's not a big deal. Like they just learn how to eat. Or they don't even have to learn. Like a horse should know how to eat. But they have to think about what their role is. So it is actually a lot more thinking than it looks like. It looks like you're just chucking food and the horse is just eating food. But there is, try it, I guess, is what I'm going to say, is try it. And then tell me how easy it is to do really cleanly. From there, if the horse gets it and this happens sometimes, we can start doing things with those tools. We can start to ground tie a horse. So we can tell the horse, you stay there. I'm going to take a couple steps away, wait a second or two and click, and then I'll come back to you and feed. And so you can start to expand those skills from that really initial, here's how you get food. Now I'm going to go over here, and you're still going to get food the same way. You're going to wait for me to come feed you. And the target kind of works the same way. You can start putting the target up in different places all around the horse to sort of see, do they get the idea that the idea is to go to the target with their nose? Then can you get them to take a couple steps? Well, then can you send them to a target across the arena? And that can be the beginning of under saddle training for a green horse. You don't have to teach them leg aids. You can just send them to a target, and they can figure out what it feels like to have somebody on their back. So the basic skills are literally as basic as you can get. But if those aren't pretty darn good, everything else is going to be built on a really faulty foundation. Does that answer your question?
Where's the clinic this weekend?
So this one is at Top of the World in Cross Plains. And there is no street address. I have tried to find the street address. It's on, what is it, Pine View Road? Yeah. But if you Google Top of the World Stables in Cross Plains.
Pine Hill Road.
Pine Hill Road, that's it. It's one of the only things on Pine Hill Road. So it's the only horse stable on Pine Hill Road. You kind of can't miss it. There's a big sign. It's at a dead end. You can't miss it. So yes, this Saturday, the 18th at Top of the World from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock.
That's exciting. So do you travel yet to do these workshops, or would you consider traveling to do the clinics or workshops?
Sure. Actually, I have one that is tentatively scheduled for November 2nd. That's up near Stevens Point, which is super exciting because I don't get to go up there very much. And don't know as many people up there. So yeah, traveling is definitely in the cards. I have some folks in Milwaukee too that are kind of interested. So I'm excited to see them as well.
Do you prefer clinics over lessons versus monthly training?
Ooh, good question. I don't really have a preference. I love doing clinics for a couple of reasons. One, and I think the people around me love it too, because I get to passion talk for 4 hours, and then the people around me are like, oh, good, she's going to shut up now. Because I've talked myself out for a while. Because I love what I do, and I love teaching it, and I love sharing it. And I love the interaction that comes from it. But one thing I have learned about myself, and apologies to my vet for sort of inappropriately lecturing in a moment that was maybe not the best timing. I have really good timing when it comes to horses and things like that. Not very good social timing. So I love clinics for that reason, because I get to just talk for 4 hours about something I really love. and all the possibilities, and answer questions, and sometimes answer difficult questions. Things like, gosh, I don't have an example, but things that people bring their beliefs in, and they're not quite aligned with mine. And I'm learning to really, really enjoy talking through those things, and like having it be okay if somebody doesn't agree with me, or if I don't agree with somebody. That is one of the cool things about being so weird, I guess, is that you have that opportunity to practice that skill. And it is absolutely a skill, in talking to people, and trying to be a bridge between what I do and where they're at. That if I do nothing else in life, if I die with this legacy, that's what I want to do, is just try to get people to talk to each other a little bit more sanely. So that's why I love clinics. I love individual lessons, because of the insights that people come up with on their own as they're working. I learn so much more than I teach from the people that, and you guys know, like you've taught lessons as well. I was just about to swear. Stuff happens that you would never expect. Things go totally sideways, and you're like, oh crap, now what do I do? And you have to come up with something on the fly, and the owner's like, well, what if we try this? And I know I have examples and I can't think of any, but it used to be really sort of humbling and humiliating when somebody would come up with an idea that was so amazing and it wasn't mine. And now you just got to roll with it and take it and be like, that was amazing. You're amazing. Let's run with your idea. And so that's why I like the private lessons. Training, like me one-on-one with a horse, that's addictive. That is super addictive, because there is no middleman for that. It's super reinforcing because there is no middleman. It's me and the horse, and there's that dialogue that happens, as you know, as riders and trainers yourself. There's no middleman there, and things happen really subtly, and it's so much fun when it flows. And so that's why I love training individually, and that's why I probably shouldn't do it, because I get too attached to other people's horses. And that's really hard. And then when a client has decided that, it's really not for them, or they can't continue for one reason or another, like it is heartbreaking. Like I lose really good friends that way. Both the clients, but the horses as well, because I feel like we've really developed a relationship.
Yeah, that's the hard part about being a horse trainer. I think it doesn't matter what the discipline, I think, is, like, you hope that there's never an end with a horse when you have a horse in training, but at the end, reality is that there's an end for everything and everyone, right? So whether you have that horse for its entire life, or a small or medium section of it, that it is hard, because we all tend to fall in love with our animals, and whether they're ours or not ours, we still feel like they're ours when they're in our care or training situation.
Yeah.
So so is there anything that we haven't touched on? I mean, I think we've learned so much, but we're coming on close to 2 hours.
Oh my
and
gosh.
We're mindful of your time. I've been enjoying this, and I think Megan has too, but we don't want to keep you here for 4 hours.
Well, I mean,
I have 2 questions.
Okay, because I can talk for 4 more hours, so so I don't want to keep you guys here. But okay, shoot.
I have 2 more questions, and then I'm done. So my first question is, what are your current professional goals? And then my second question is, if you could, and I want you to save this one for last, If you could go back, what would you do differently with Shorty?
Oh my God, I'm going to totally cry. So professional goals. I would like to take and pass the certification for equine behavior consultant. That would be amazing. More professional development, like the training itself is addicting, but the learning for me is it's not an underestimate to say that it's life-saving in some ways. Like it is one of the things that I truly live for is to learn more stuff. So I would love to do more professional development. When in the beginnings, and I feel like I'm still in the beginnings of this business, it is hard to budget for professional development and hard and yeah, to have a budget for that as well as like rent. Like to have a roof over my house is kind of fun. So like sometimes I have to make those really hard choices about, well, this year I can't do Clicker Expo, or I can't buy that textbook or take that course because it's just not, I haven't gotten that far yet. I don't have enough in reserves to do it. And I think, I don't know, I'm a little ambivalent about it, but I think to get out there a little bit more and be a little bit more visible, not necessarily because it's what I want. I would rather people that just come to me. But if nobody knows about what I'm doing, nobody's going to come in the door. So I have to try to get out and do more things. And that's really challenging right now. It's always challenging for me, but it's challenging right now because I feel like we've lost a lot of our local access to people. A lot of the clubs have kind of gone away. COVID broke a lot of stuff. And then, you know, I took a break and I had some issues of my own that I just needed to go off and try to resolve. So I sort of stepped away from the social scene. And so I would like to get out and watch more clinics and see more stuff and learn stuff that I don't want to say that I don't necessarily agree with, but see stuff that might be challenging, and try to challenge myself that way and say, well, maybe I wouldn't do it that way, but how could I do it? How could I challenge myself creatively and that goes with photography as well. How can I challenge myself to come up with a way to do it that is authentic to me? And find, you know, and at the same time, challenge myself to learn to accept that things aren't going to happen the way that I think they should, because that's reality. Yeah. What would I do differently with Shorty? Oh my gosh. I would have to have been a completely different person. I think I would have to be who I am now, and that wasn't ever going to be possible. And oh my God, I totally am going to cry. So much of who I am and excuse me, and how I see horses and what I do with them is because of him. And so I feel like, goodness, in some ways I would say that I wouldn't change anything, but I would listen more, and try to be even more observant and to do more things that he enjoyed. Try to find the things that he would have enjoyed, more than the stuff that I did. I think he did enjoy a lot of stuff that we did, but I would like to find ways that he could have been as much himself as I was me, I guess, if that makes sense.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. My first horse is still with me. Every horse I work with and meet, and there have been a lot of special horses along the way, and I try to bring what I learned from them to everyone else. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that question.
Yeah, Steffi.
Yeah, I got one out of left field.
Yeah.
Megan, you're terrible. Okay, so if and this is truly left field, like if
Mhm.
wishes were dreams, or maybe not, I don't know. We have this little event in Wisconsin that is called Midwest Horse Fair. If
Uh,
if in the future you were asked to be a clinician or whatever they call them, is that something you would be excited to do? Is that something that would be mildly terrifying? Like where, because like I think they'll do lectures in some of the lecture rooms, and then usually you've got a little bit of time in the various arenas and things. So that's that gets you out there. Is that something that you would be like, wow, I would love to be invited to that, or what's your thought?
so yes, to all of that. It would be exciting. It would be more than mildly terrifying for sure. And I would, there was a guy, I watched a TED talk once where a guy was, it was a TED talk, and he was talking about how they invited him to do this TED talk. And he said, I have always wanted to have done a TED talk. So I would want to have done a demo or something at Horse Fair. The actual doing of it is absolutely terrifying. But I can't say I'd turn it down. Um, the tricky part is that what I do is so boring to watch. Honestly, like it's not exciting. There's no fire. There's no galloping around. There's horses eating food, and that's not very exciting to watch. There is some stuff, you can get exciting stuff, but there aren't in this area, at least for my clientele, for my own horses, and for the people I know. What we're doing isn't really. We're not generally working towards the exciting stuff because we're working on such small scale things, and that's not. People are, just to be frank, not going to be interested in it. It's something that folks and other R plus folks in the area and I have talked about. Like, should we form an organization? Should we try to do something at Horse Fair? And I would be more than happy to give it a try. I think it would be a super fun thing to do. It would be personally really fulfilling for me because, again, I get to talk about stuff, whether people are in the room or not. But I don't know how it would be received, to be honest. I don't know that it would be something that people would really be interested in watching.
I disagree. Dressage is boring at its basics. And I love Stephen Peters, but he goes to basics. And a lot of people go and watch him. And yes, I understand 20 years, Olympian, this and that. But it's boring. And I don't know how many people have told me dressage is boring. But to the individual, it's exciting to me. Those basics are exciting to me. So I think instead, think about the little girl that's inside you that you're trying to encourage and approach and attract, and maybe start out with lectures, because there's the lecture hall, and see how it's received there. And then I say do it. Why not? I mean,
Well, I think you have to be invited. So
no,
oh,
you're not invited. You apply.
oh, all right.
I challenge you. Have the deadline is already passed. I already know. So I would say, why don't you apply for 2027? You'll be
Okay.
certified. That'll make you more confident. That might make the audience more confident, but who cares?
Yeah.
Like, reach the people who are really interested and give them the dream and the gift, through your actions. So I challenge you. I disagree. You have until September 2026 to apply for the 2027 Midwest Horse Fair. And no, you're not invited. You apply.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hadn't really tried. I'd been there as an official photographer and had to be invited for that, but had not tried to be a presenter. The one thing that I'll say that I do have right now is a presentation for healthcare people, professionals like vets, farriers, body workers, saddle fitters, things like that. I have a presentation ready to go for that. So if anybody is interested in that kind of thing, that I have, and I can do, tomorrow. Well, tomorrow
I have a question.
busy, but yeah.
So how long is that presentation? Like, is this a 30-minute or a 1 hour or 6 hour, or 3 days, 3 days,
65 years.
hours? Yeah.
No, it's about 45 minutes. It's probably about an hour with questions and whatnot. And people do sometimes have questions about it because it is more about not as much about the training. There's some behavioral analysis stuff in it and behavioral science stuff. And then just some examples of how I use the training to do various tasks like foot handling, injection training, things like that.
Is that something that you would give like live in person, or everybody's gone to like doing these team type, even like this type of meeting, online education? Because online education is easy for people, right? They sit in their armchairs, kind of like Megan and I are, you are. You just log into your computer and you're there. There's no travel cost.
Right.
Like, so is this something that would work for like a virtual educational thing? Or
Sure, it could go either way. The last time I did it, was inside a vet clinic. So I brought in a TV, because it's not a very big space. So and just gave it live in person. And I'm happy to do that. Also happy to do it virtually as well. It's a little bit weirder to do it online because I don't have like people looking at me. So it's, this is a little different because I can see you guys, but if there are enough people, then they get their tiny little heads and it's harder to see. But happy to give it a try for sure. For in whatever format.
Yeah, because I was like thinking, why not for a WDCTA, annual banquet, and it doesn't have to be WDCTA. I'm just, we all know what that is.
Right.
Or just an online, just an education event for the members,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I could also put something together that is a little bit more geared towards like how would you use these skills for dressage or for groundwork or something like that as well. I have all kinds of things in the works, but I have a shaping course that I'm making. So shaping is the process of breaking things down into tiny little steps in order to get a behavior to happen. And so I have a huge plan in the works for that as well, but could do something smaller that sort of explains like an overview of how I would approach things. The healthcare professional presentation that I have is geared more towards healthcare professionals, but it could work, I guess, for an owner audience as well.
We're just trying to get you to think outside of the box, right? We're encouraging.
I love
pushing. We might be pushing you over a cliff or to the edge of the cliff, but we're encouraging. We're there.
I can fill out the application
for
Midwest Horse Fair. I can make a phone call and see about the annual meeting.
I mean, I will regret saying this, but yes, I will take at least consider all opportunities.
You never know.
Yeah.
I mean, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And then you're going to find the tribe and the people that are open and interested in learning. And I think keep thinking about the little, the young people that want to, who look up to you and are like, well, I want to do that someday, because they're all out there.
Yeah. I haven't met a lot of the young folks. Actually, most of my clientele is my age or older.
Yeah.
And they're folks that have had some scary experiences and want to go back a little bit. But yeah, the young folks would be fun too. They pick it up pretty quickly.
Yeah. And it
I
just
say,
grows.
why wait to the annual meeting, Megan? We could start off with something this fall or in early, because it's like March next year, right? So like, why wait when we do something newer and then, go from there.
Hey, I'm open to it. I'm here until December, so I'll show up.
If it's online, you could show up from anywhere.
Oh, if it's
Well, that's
online,
true.
yeah. I was thinking more in person. I actually want to go. I mean, for I think it's been a year, maybe two. I've actually wanted to go to a clinic. Like I said, I'm being totally honest. I'm like, what is Heather doing over there? But I'm a curious person. I want to know. Like, I'm like, what's going on? It seems to be working, or I don't understand what she's doing. I want to understand. So yeah, I would go.
Yeah, and I will also offer a fun hour or whatever at your barn if you wanted to just take a moment and start this, like do like a mini clinic.
Okay.
We can do that too.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Just to get a feel for what it feels like to start the process anyway.
Yeah, I'd be open to it. Why not? Shoot some dates.
Yeah.
Let's look at the calendar.
Do you clicker train kittens? I know of 2 cute little kittens.
I am actually training my cats. Yeah.
There we go, Meggers.
They're
because cats. Oh my gosh, cats are ridiculous. Because the principles of behavior analysis work on every single species. It is not. They're universal. They work on anywhere from like literally butterflies. There is a man that trained butterflies to fly from one place to another during a particular moment in a live symphony.
Cool.
Yes. Yeah. So this literally works for every single living species on the planet.
People too?
Absolutely, people. It is universal.
Okay. Forget the
I'm
horses.
food motivated, Megan.
What?
I'm food motivated.
I
can be bribed by food.
Okay. All right. I have a few subjects for you.
Okay.
This is awesome. I'm excited. Yeah. Shoot me some dates. We got a plan.
Right. Okay. That sounds good.
Well, this has been awesome. Look, we've been over 2 hours, so we should probably wrap it up because I'm sure everybody's getting tired. But this has been so much fun. I really appreciate it. And yeah, Megan and I are behind you with a couple cattle prods, just shoving you towards that cliff. We know that you got wings you're going to spread and you're going to soar. So yeah,
I'm going to have to, because if there's a cattle prod behind me, I'm going to have to figure this out.
Negative reinforcement.
That actually
negative.
That becomes it becomes actually positive punishment, because if you have something that if you're adding a cattle prod and you want me to move forward, you're punishing my behavior of standing still by adding that cattle prod. So you're adding something that's very uncomfortable to stop a behavior from happening. That is what punishment does. It stops a behavior from happening. So you're
we don't want your business to stand still. We want you moving forward.
We do.
And if that takes punishment.
That's right.
Well, we could dangle some guacamole or something out in front of you or whatever. There's that food motivation.
Yeah. But that's a bribe though. So I have to do the behavior first and then get the guacamole.
Oh.
So so you have to set up the environment in such a way that behavior happens, because that's the most logical thing to happen.
I'll throw the guacamole over the cliff so that you chase it.
No, I'll print out
Throwing
the
the food into the
application.
bucket.
I'll fill it out and you hit the submit button and then feed her the guac.
Okay.
I got this. I listen.
We are going to have so many conversations about how behavior works.
I'm excited. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Heather.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. This was, an absolute blast. I had so much fun.
I'm putting your
Awesome.
website back on the screen so people see it. We'll make sure we get it down in the description as well. I can't remember if it's in there. It's been a week or two since I set this up, so I can't recall what's in there, but we'll double check. And then actually, if you can, and because I don't remember if it was in what you sent over, the organization, if they have a website, will you send that over? Because we'll put that in there too, in the hopes that within under a year, you're going to be certified. Right, Megan?
That's right.
She's making faces. I see the faces.
Oh no, it's because
There it
I'm
is.
blind and I'm trying to type. But
I see it.
but there's a typo because
I know.
it's a period. And
Yeah. It's okay.
So
We'll figure it out.
yes, no, it's because I'm blind. It's not. Everybody thinks I'm angry and I can't see.
As you can see, I resemble that remark.
I don't know what happened to my readers. They're
I have
probably.
a pile of them on the desk.
I
I
don't.
probably have 6 to 8 pairs.
I don't have enough piles of readers yet. I am.
Yeah.
I have not quite admitted that foible yet. So because I
have them everywhere. They're stuffed everywhere.
I just turned 47, and so it's time.
Yep.
Awesome. Well,
You know what
thank
that's
you.
like. Yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
going
thank
to
you.
bed. It's my
Yeah.
bedtime now.
Yeah, me too.
I know, me too. It's all of
you,
our
Heather.
bedtime. Yep,
Yes,
thank you
guys.
We'll
Thanks
be
to
in touch.
everybody. Be sure you hit subscribe and have a great night, everybody.
Good
All
night.
right. Thank you. Good night.